your mom is feeding you off of.
So your argument is you don't think being poor is a choice.
I'm arguing that it's.
You can be born poor. Let me be clear about this. You could be born poor. You could come in from a poor family, but staying poor is absolutely a choice.
All right, that can be argued, but I kind of want to focus on the aspect of fatness.
I grew up poor. I remember, waking up and trying to get cereal, and there was like cockroaches in the cereal bag. I remember, milk going bad. I remember, like not being able to afford clothes. Like I remember all of that stuff. And, you can only do so much when you're a kid. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But once you become an adult, at some point you have to bear responsibility for your life circumstances. And if you're broke still and you're like in your 20s or you're out of your parents' house, like what are you doing? Like, or if you're not working towards something, you don't have to be rich now, but you can't blame a poor upbringing on poor behavior later on.
Myron Gaines slams woke bio student for having insane arguments on why being fat is not a choice. As Myron debates this student, not only he brings up that being fat isn't a choice, but being poor isn't a choice either, and that the government dictates if you should be poor or rich. And Myron calmly destroys that narrative. Let's jump in.
I believe you were talking about if the degree that being fat is a choice.
Being fat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking about that?
Well, I didn't really mention being fat, but I do think being fat is a choice, yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, I wanna emphasize I'm a big fan of like empirical evidence. I'm a biochemist, sophomore year. I'd like to also say I probably have some qualifications. 4-year, I'd consider myself an advanced lifter. So my question is, to what degree do you think that being fat is a choice? Like percent, let's say.
Well, I mean, if you decide to order pizza and then put the pizza in your mouth, I would say that's a choice. And then if you choose to do that over and over, that's a choice. Then if you decide to not exercise after the fact, that's a choice. If you decide to not drink water and drink beer instead, that's a choice. If you decide to not eat vegetables and eat candy instead, that's a choice. So yeah, being a fat ass is completely a choice and it's unacceptable.
All right, so as a baseline, I'm going to have to agree with you there.
Fair.
I'm going to have to agree with you there. But I also just kind of wanted you to acknowledge that there can exist other factors, like third variables that have an influence on that. And I'll elaborate. So we have
not everybody's going to have the same metabolic capacity. We understand some people have a higher, resting metabolism. But the reality is, it's like, for some people, it might be harder to lose weight, but it's still a choice no matter what.
I agree with that. What I wanted to come here and say, though, there's a ton of study on our total daily energy expenditure, right? It's divided into like TAE, which is basically thermodynamic effect when you're eating. Yep. We have EAT, which is your actual exercise, activity thermogenesis. Yep. NEAT, which is like your fidgeting, walking.
Non-exercising,
Yeah, and then we also have our BMI, which is...
BMR, basal metabolic rate, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or BMR, sorry.
BMR, yep.
And we definitely can impact that, but that's lesser to a degree of our choice. But as like fruitful as all of those sciences are in the biomedical field, as valuable as that information is, I think it's equally as scientific and important to recognize other studies like anthropology and one's like socioeconomic status as a bearing onto their ability to like lose some pounds, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, here's the thing. If we're going to bring in socioeconomic status, like being poor is a choice too.
To an extent. I think
it's absolutely a choice.
Everything in this world is black or white, or not everything. I'm in gray area, and I think it's wrong to portray it as either black or white. And there's always extraneous circumstances for any argument you make, and that's why I wanted to highlight the matter of anthropology.
I disagree with that. I think that's a bunch of faggotry. I think if you're gonna, I think being poor is absolutely a choice. I know a lot of people make excuses for, I'm black, bro, systemic racism, man. Or I'm a woman, I can't get ahead. It's like, no, dude, you like in America, like if you work really hard, you can absolutely make something of yourself. There's a reason why people immigrate here. There's a reason why this is called the land of opportunity. Our capitalistic society is set it up where it's a meritocracy-based system, and if you work really hard, you can overcome stuff. I mean, there's plenty of retards that could barely read that are multimillionaires. You know what I mean? So you look at like Floyd Mayweather and Kai Cenat, these guys can't even read a page from Cat in the Hat, but they're fucking multimillionaires. They're retards and they made it. So there's ways. I truly do think being poor is a choice.
And I couldn't agree more. Being poor is a choice. Selling your body is a choice. Being fat and staying fat is a choice. If a person is getting called out for their choices and gets offended, that's literally on that person for making poor decisions, not the other way around. For example, if a person is selling their body expect a negative reaction. Because if that person has a soul, if they still have a soul, deep down, that person knows it's wrong. Let's continue.
All right, now you did list some pretty good like anecdotal examples,
Sure.
But as a bottom line, I'd like to also highlight some other like third variables. Like, are you familiar with gerrymandering?
What's that?
So basically, congressmen are responsible for the district lining in states. And the way our voting system works is if a state receives a majority district, let's say the Republican majority, then all of the state's electoral votes are going to be conceded to the Republicans. That being said, yeah, that's how voting works. We'll get there, bro. Basically, there's two strategies in gerrymandering: packing and cracking. Yeah, cracking. And then packing refers to placing all of someone in a marginalized community, like let's say all your black people of a state, into a particular district. They might win that district over 1 out of the 13, but in the end, they still lose the 12 other districts, and in the end, all of the electoral votes are conceded to their opposition political party, effectively stripping them of their political voice and legitimacy. What's your opinion on that?
Well, whoever's in office doesn't dictate if you're poor or not.
The congressmen definitely have a bearing on whether or not you stay in some of these gerrymandered districts because they are responsible for making the lining.
Yeah, but a lot of successful people don't even know who their congressman is or care.
There's a lot of successful people. That's true, but that's not that doesn't disprove my point. That's anecdotal evidence. That's a counterexample.
What I'm saying is that the people that are in office don't dictate how hard you work. Now, for some people, that might mean you might need to work harder than others. Some people are naturally gifted, some others aren't. But whoever's in office as your congressman does not, or even your president, like, they're not going to hold you back from success to the same degree that you're going to hold yourself back. I think, and this is a problem, is like we're very comfortable with blaming, external factors that a lot of times are out of our control as to why we're not successful. And that is why we have so many of the problems that we have. I think people need to bear a bit more accountability and responsibility to themselves, where if you're poor, it's really your choice. That you made bad financial decisions, you didn't learn a skill. You can't blame the government for everything.
Okay, I could understand that to an extent, but that is mostly referring to the people that are of legal age, above 18, that have that sort of proactivity and a locus of control where they can actually enact that change to make their lives better, correct?
Okay, so now you're saying it's only for adults? Like,
I'm getting there. I just wanted to see that you were on the same page. No, that's not what I'm saying, though. All right, so picture yourself. You're born. You're a wee little jit, right? You're like 10 years old. Your mom is feeding you off of.
So your argument is you don't think being poor is a choice?
I'm arguing that it's.
You can be born poor. Let me be clear about this. You could be born poor. You could come in from a poor family, but staying poor is absolutely a choice.
All right, that can be argued, but I kind of want to focus on the aspect of fatness.
I grew up poor. I remember, waking up and trying to get cereal, and there was like cockroaches in the cereal bag. I remember, milk going bad. I remember, like not being able to afford clothes. Like I remember all of that stuff. And, you can only do so much when you're a kid. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But once you become an adult, at some point you have to bear responsibility for your life circumstances. And if you're broke still and you're like in your 20s or you're out of your parents' house, like, what are you doing? Like, or if you're not working towards something, you don't have to be rich now, but you can't blame a poor upbringing on poor behavior later on.
Okay, that's fair. But
let's get to the next person, because I know, completely off topic. And
can I get like 20 seconds max?
This guy.
All right. So when you're a kid, your formative eating habits are mainly dictated by your parents and what they give you. And if you're like 10 years old and you're giving your cereal all these like processed ass foods like cereal and shit like that, that's going to set them up wrong. That's going to be the determining factor of why they're obese later in life. And I agree that that's their choice, but until they're 18, that's realistically and epigenetically a result of their parents' decision onto them. Do you agree with that?
Okay, and then they can change. Or they could stay a fat ass.
They can. I agree with that. They do have the propensity to change. They do have the propensity to be a fat ass. But habits are break to change. They're hard to change as human.
What the hell is this student talking about? College clearly is a scam because he's basically rooting for people to make stupid decisions and not expect a reaction from it. Claiming that only adults can make it out and uses science as an excuse on why being fat isn't a choice. Myron is just laughing at this point because truly this guy has zero arguments. Myron stated that he grew up poor and became successful by becoming rich through hard work and learning skills that pay bills. So really, this kid is blatantly ignorant for making such stupid arguments. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. We'll see you on the next one.